Hi everyone, and welcome back to season 3 of Commerce Meets Law, a podcast where we talk about various commercial topics and how they interact with the legal profession. Today's episode is a super exciting one featuring Avni Varsani, an associate solicitor at ELS Legal, providing expert legal services and tailored advice to clients in a range of practice areas from employment to family to disputes to property and so much more. This episode, very excitingly, actually took place at the ELS Legal office, and it was such a pleasure to be able to talk to Avni at her place of work and also about that whilst we were at the office and in the midst of the amazing and incredible team as well. In this episode, we discuss Avni's journey into law, why she chose to train at a firm like ELS Legal, how ELS Legal differs from traditional law firms, and kind of what their model looks like in terms of the services they offer, the kind of work that solicitors do, and the clients that they have as well. What a day in Avni's life looks like, and also what she's hoping to achieve professionally over the next couple of years, and what she's hoping to gain from her professional career. Just a quick request before we get into the conversation. I would really appreciate if you'd kindly give the podcast a follow and a rating on Spotify or an Apple Podcast, wherever you listen to these episodes, as it really helps Commerce Meets Law reach more listeners. Without further ado, I thoroughly hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll see you right at the end. Hi Avni, and welcome to Commerce Meets Law. Very excited here to be at the ELS Legal office today and to learn a bit more about your journey as well as about all the work that the firm is doing. So we always have an icebreaker on the podcast, which is, in your opinion, what is your superpower?
I would say it's resilience. So recovering quickly from setbacks, not crying over spilt milk, as they would say.
Oh, I love that. And do you think that you've always had resilience, or has it been something you've built up over time?
I think you build it up over time, especially if you've had major setbacks or if you failed. And you learn from that, and I think it makes you stronger.
Definitely. And we can definitely get into that, because I think every person who's listening, who's trying to get into any sort of competitive career or anything of the sort, has experienced that and, is probably on a journey of building up resilience as well. So if we take it back slightly before we get into everything you're doing today, could you tell me a bit about your sort of main interests and passions growing up and when law first came into the picture?
So I had a strong interest in creative pursuits, such as dance and performing arts. Which helped me develop transferable skills, including discipline, communication, confidence, and public speaking, which are valuable in the role of a solicitor.
Definitely. And did you always know that you sort of wanted to go into a more academic career, or did you think, maybe I could be a dancer or be more creative?
I never really thought that I'd go into a creative role, but I do think that the skills that you get from doing those activities definitely help you, no matter what journey you take and which career you decide to go into.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, it's important to have like passions outside and that kind of complete identity as well. And in a way, it's sort of also then transferable. So that's definitely important for people who are considering coming to the legal profession as well. And could you tell me a bit about sort of what first sparked your interest in law and what kind of law it was, if you remember?
I think there was no single defining moment when I decided to become a lawyer. So rather, it was like a gradual recognition of my natural strengths, my abilities, my interests, and that aligned very well with the profession. And I thought it would make a suitable career path.
Yeah, definitely. And when you decided to do law and during your law degree, obviously there's so many paths to take, and a massive percentage of people who end up doing law don't end up becoming lawyers. And then those that do, you can go down various kind of professions. How did you know that you wanted to become a solicitor, and did you explore any other paths?
I think during college, that was the real moment for me where I had to sort of make a decision on what to study in university. And I decided that pursuing a law degree was the best thing for me at that time, with very much in my mind thinking of becoming a solicitor. But I didn't know how difficult it was to get into the profession, and that's not something that they tell you in college or in high school. So it was very much a learning curve for me, and I only really understood the steps to becoming a solicitor after I did my placement year during university. So I was on a work placement, and when I started speaking to the other solicitors, that's when I realized that there are so many obstacles before you actually become a solicitor. you've got to do a training contract, you've got to do the LPC, which is now the SQE route.
Yeah.
So there are lots of obstacles to get there. So that's how I got into it.
Absolutely. I think it is quite opaque, and now hopefully with this podcast and lots of others like this, there's more information out there. But I think it's definitely something that is glamorized in a way, whether that's in a TV show or in a drama or in books, and the nitty-gritty stuff you don't really realize until you kind of get into it yourself and until you're at university. And this is the time that I remember when I was reading about your story on the Law Society page. I remember reading that really clearly about you talking about those obstacles, and I thought that's really important to explore for people who don't have connections in the legal industry, or who don't, whose parents aren't lawyers. They don't know who kind of lawyers in their family or in their circle, for that matter. So when you were at university, can you tell me some of the experiences that you had? You mentioned your placement year, but alongside that, which kind of solidify your interest in it and perhaps showed you what a path in this career could look like?
I think most people misunderstand the career path into becoming a solicitor or a barrister. I think people think if you've done a law degree, that's it. Yeah. You're a lawyer.
Yeah.
And people will often go around saying, "Oh yeah, my daughter's a lawyer. She did a law degree," but it's not the same thing. Yeah. There are so many things that you have to do to get to that title. Yes. So when I started my course, it was just a pure law degree, which was 3 years.
Yeah.
And some of my friends on the course had decided to do the placement. They were on the placement course, which meant that you do your 2 academic years and then you go off for a year and you do work experience, and then you come back for your final year. And I hadn't even considered that. I actually didn't know that was an option. And so I thought, I'll give it a go. I'll sign up to the work experience, see if I get anything. Did a few interviews and managed to secure a placement, and then switched to the sandwich course, is what they called it. And that was my real first exposure to a law firm. And that's when I understood how a law firm operates, how it operates as a business, the type of clients that you meet, the fast-paced environment, working under pressure. And that was my first insight into what it's like to become a lawyer. And then it's only after I spoke to the lawyers working there, realized how many steps there are to qualifying as a solicitor.
Yeah. And can you tell me a bit about the placement, what area of law it was in, and what kind of work you were doing at the time?
So I was working in a legal aid firm local to where I live, and it was a high street firm. It was very fast paced. We had very much enter the door and we'll take you on as a client sort of. There was no long process in that sense. We had it was very client facing, and we had these little sessions where people would come in, they would tell us about their problems, and then we'd see if we could help them and onboard them on the day. So yeah, that's where I learned how to work under pressure. It was very fast paced.
Yeah, and I think that's so important as well. You in a way you kind of got thrown in the deep end, and you had to it was like you sink or swim. And I think that's really, it probably gives you such a good insight into what you will be doing and whether or not you actually enjoy that, and whether you feel like you are able to sustain that as well. And following your placement year, obviously this is a part where lots of people who listen to the podcast are currently applying for vacation schemes, or they're applying for training contracts, or they're looking to get into the profession. And it can be a long and arduous journey for a lot of people. And for you, it was no less filled with obstacles. So can you tell me a bit about, once you finished that placement year, what your application cycles looked like, and what were some of the challenges you faced there?
So after I finished my placement year, the biggest mistake that I did was just diving into trying to apply to as many training contracts as I could, and not really understanding or acknowledging what type of law firm I wanted to work for, or what type of law I wanted to practice. And so it was a bit like just throwing my eggs into one basket and doing like crazy amounts of applications, but not having that quality application. And it took me a really long time to refine the way that I was filling in my applications. So my advice to aspiring students is, aspiring solicitors, is to ensure that you understand first what you like and what you don't like, and that can come from doing numerous types of work experience, and then applying to specific firms, and then understanding what they want and whether that aligns with what you want, because often people will think that you want to be a solicitor at a corporate firm, but it doesn't actually align with your own values. So it's very important to find that match.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you felt this, but I think sometimes at university as well, because you see other alumni or other people having gone into mostly the corporate sector, but generally certain types of industries or sectors within law, you feel like you also have to do that, and there's not really examples of anything else. Did you feel like there were people or role models you could speak to when you were at university, either at the university or people who just graduated, in terms of the different sectors, or did you feel like you were kind of in it on your own?
At the time, it did feel like I was on my own.
Yeah.
It could be because I didn't fully understand um, how everything worked and what my options were. And I do feel like there's a lot more options available now than there was back then.
Yeah.
I'm saying back then as if it was like a prehistoric period, but it was. There wasn't as many changed quite quickly, especially after COVID. I feel like there's a lot more
For sure.
variety of how you can get into the profession.
Definitely. And I think that that's one good thing to have come out of, what was a global pandemic and such a, kind of catastrophe for so many people. But I think the one good thing to come out of it is there's definitely more information out there. More firms doing online open days and, kind of virtual fairs and giving people an opportunity across the country, not just based in London or certain parts of London, in terms of the firms that are available. And talking a bit about the office that we're sat in now and ELS Legal and your journey to it, can I ask you, when you first came across ELS Legal, what did you find out about it and how did you decide that you might want to apply here?
So ELS Legal didn't showcase their applications as normal firms do. So I found them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And at the time, they were a fairly new firm. So they were established in 2022. So they're quite new still. And they had an opening for a trainee solicitor as they were growing their team.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I think I had applied to 2 or 3 different firms, but I was quite keen on this one because there was an opportunity to grow. And there was a bit of a business element to it as well, because there would be an opportunity to find clients and do marketing and have a bit more of that creative side of me working as well.
Yeah.
So that's how I found them. I found them through LinkedIn and I did the application, got invited to the interview, then went on to the next stage, and then they selected me to come and join them.
Yeah, that's so exciting as well, because I think, a lot of times you hear about sort of people wanting to join established places or places where they know that other people have been and there's a certain sort of, I guess, status or prestige attached to that. When joining a firm that's just been established a couple of years ago, did you have any fears at all? Did you think, oh, I'm not sure whether this is a place for me to learn? Or did you actually, on the other hand, think, well, if I'm part of the foundation of it, then that's probably more exciting?
I think definitely I did feel like it was more exciting because, like I said, you get involved, you get the opportunity to get involved in the more business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So focusing on the marketing and the networking and getting clients through the door. So it wasn't just doing legal work. There was that business element to it too, which is what attracted me to the role the most.
Absolutely. And it sounds like when you did that work at the high street firm and kind of your placement year, it sounds like you were already, how you had that practice of onboarding clients, speaking to them, and kind of, I guess, already working under pressure. So I can see how that might have appealed as well. And with ELS Legal, I guess it's a different model in the sense of you're offering a much wider range of services. And like you said, you're also getting involved in the business side. So could you tell me a bit about how your training contract was structured and the kind of seats that you did and what work you got involved with?
So with ELS Legal, we didn't have specific seats, and I don't think the SRA want that requirement anymore. As long as you've got qualifying work experience, it doesn't have to be as rigid as, you have to do 4 seats. Although I do understand that some of the larger firms still sort of adopt that traditional way of structuring the training contract. So it was very much whatever type of case comes in, I would get experience in that area of law, which actually gave me a wide and a vast understanding of different areas of law, and actually gave me an opportunity to think about what I do like doing, what I don't like doing, what kind of areas interest me. So yeah, I think it was that not having that rigid structure actually made the experience much better.
Yeah, and I guess that's something that, if you, like you say, even now, a lot of firms do obviously are not just specialized in the sense of a particular area, but even within that, you do have that sort of structure of 6-month seats and 4 seats, and you then specialize in that and you qualify into one of them. And for you, on the other hand, you're experiencing a wide range as well. But I guess with that also comes the ability to then know information and, kind of be able to analyze and switch from one to the other. Did you ever face any struggles with that? And, did you have any ways of hoping to go from, say, employment to family to education?
I think it felt like I was wearing different hats,
Yeah.
and I would have to switch from one hat to the other. And it didn't necessarily mean that I knew every single area of law and that I was this all-knowing being, but it gave me an opportunity to research and learn things. And I think in comparison to when you have a rigid, structured training contract, it feels like you've only just got comfortable in there for 6 months and then you have to switch. And then you've only got 4 options and you have to qualify into one of them. Whereas here I get the opportunity to do a lot more variety of areas of law. And I'm constantly learning new things, which I think is great.
Absolutely. And can you tell me a bit about the kind of clients that you have and the kind of people, I guess without getting specifics, but the sort of clients that you cater to and what kind of work you primarily sort of engage in?
So we work with a variety of clients. We have individuals, work with businesses, and it could be as simple as someone just coming in to have their will done, or it might be a business who comes in to have a settlement agreement drawn up, or to have some sort of contract drawn up. So it really does vary, and sometimes we just have walking clients who just want a document certified. So at the moment we have a variety of clients coming in, and in terms of the work that we do, so we deal with most high street areas of law apart from conveyancing, and we don't do crime. But other than that, we do employment law, family law, landlord and tenant disputes. So we cover quite a lot.
That's amazing. And I guess, would you say that a lot of the clients that come in are looking for that sort of full range of service, or many times is it that a client comes in and says it's just this particular problem that they sort of want help with, or do they come back on an ongoing basis for a variety of different issues?
I think the great thing is that they may come in with one issue and then we can sort of tell them that, okay, we do this area of law as well, and then they might have another issue and they'll think of us for that. So sometimes people come in for a property matter, and then they'll realize that we do wills and probate, so they may decide to also get their will drafted with us. And that's what we try and do. We try and build a relationship with the client so that we get that repeat business and that they are also satisfied as a client too.
Sure. And I guess you then training in a multitude of areas and also having that business sense and that understanding of how a law firm works is so crucial, because when you're talking to the client, you can identify that there are other issues that they may have and you can help them with that rather than just the issue in front of you, which perhaps in a kind of more rigid structure, you wouldn't have sort of that much access to.
Yes, exactly. You would probably have separate departments for that. It's not as accessible. Whereas if a client comes in, we can, like I said, switch the hat and then offer them another type of service as well.
Absolutely. And now that obviously the firm was, it's relatively new, was established a couple of years ago, but in terms of anyone looking who's thinking, oh, this seems like, a great place and I want to have this kind of range of exposure. I want a range of exposure to all sorts of different seats. I guess, what's the process look like now, and how many trainees does the firm take on a yearly basis? Is there such a structure?
I qualified last year and we have one trainee who's qualifying this year.
Amazing.
So maybe in the near future, we may be looking for further trainees, which we would just advertise through either, LinkedIn or put it on our website. We don't believe in having that sort of corporate, 5 interview stage. I think we want to get to know the person and see if they're a good fit for the firm, but also for the person to see if it's a place that they want to work at. So it's not as complicated or complex. We just like to keep things simple here.
I love that. And this is a shout out to actually how many good jobs are advertised on LinkedIn. So it's definitely a great place. I think people, a lot of times, especially within law, perhaps, I think the perception is it's always on the website or there's always a particular structure, but that's really, really not true. And there's so many places now which great companies and new and established firms establish, kind of putting their jobs out on LinkedIn. So it's definitely a great place to look for sure. And you just mentioned qualification. Congrats on that. Now that you are qualified, can you tell me a bit about how different is it to being a trainee? How specialized is your practice? Or would you say that it's very much still generic and you're doing a wide range of areas?
So in my experience, we were given responsibility from day one. And it was a very supportive environment, but because you were thrown in the deep end from day one, I feel like the transition has been quite smooth from becoming a trainee to a qualified solicitor. And it does really help you in practice because you're a lot more confident dealing with clients. You have that face-to-face interaction from when you were a trainee, so you've got that experience that you can transfer over to when you're qualified.
Would you say that a day in your life as a kind of now that you're qualified and associate look different when you were a trainee, or would you say that a lot of it is similar?
A lot of it is similar. The only difference is I can now give advice and certify documents independently without having a supervisor present.
Absolutely. And now that, these things are very popular with people doing day in their lives, I guess if you had to draw one out, with the caveat of every day can look a little bit different, what would a day in your life look like at ELS Legal?
So one of the great things about the firm is that they have complimentary food and snacks and everything. So the first thing I do when I come in is have either my first breakfast or second breakfast of the day. And then I like to catch up on my emails, plan my day, do my to-do lists. And then I just get straight into getting involved with casework. I also help supervise the paralegals and the trainees, and we just take it as it comes. We sometimes have walk-ins who are either have an inquiry or they need help certifying a document, so we will assist them with that. So like you said, each day is very different.
And do you tend to sort of, in terms of the office, because I guess now there's also, since COVID, it's a running discussion of some firms have wanted their trainees and more junior staff back a lot of the time, and some are more of a hybrid structure. So how is it at ELS Legal, and what does your split look like?
I think here everybody just loves coming into the office because it's such a lovely environment. And I know people might have different views on this, but I think when you're when you're in the infancy of your career, especially as a trainee or paralegal, I would tell you 100% go to the office. I think you need to listen to senior people talk. You need to listen you need to hear the cases. You need to learn from that. And then I think the best thing is to be amongst those people and observe what they're doing. And that's the best way to learn. And you can't do that working from home.
Definitely. And I think that, like you say, especially when you're junior, so much of it is also taking it through kind of, just like osmosis. Like, it's like not just learning because there's a client in front of you, which obviously is really important, but also just listening in on calls or how they're doing work, or just asking a question, rather than having to arrange a Zoom or a Teams call or anything like that. And the big discussion alongside, work from home and that kind of thing in 2026 is obviously AI and how that's impacting not just obviously law firms, every sector, but particularly within, if we're talking about law, at ELS Legal, at a smaller firm where you are providing a more comprehensive service, how does AI fit into your service, and how much do you use it on a day-to-day basis?
I think everyone has to accept the fact that AI has now become very central to everyone's lives. And instead of shying away from it, I think we should learn how to use it to our advantage. And I do see the legal landscape changing to adapt to AI in a lot of ways. And a lot of big firms are actually trying to develop their own AI to help them with their work. I think as long as you've got an AI and technology policy, so that your clients understand how you're using AI, I don't see any issue with it being used. At ELS Legal, we do try to, try to cater to the client's needs. So whilst there is some reliance on AI, naturally, as everyone is relying on it at the moment and trying to adapt it into their business to make work more efficient, I think it's very important that whatever advice you provide is always unique to that client. So it always needs that solicitor's touch at the end. So you can't completely rely on AI, but it's good to have that as a support system.
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking about this, like, because you interact with clients so much more on a face-to-face basis and, every day, when, you hear about sort of GPs now saying, oh, people come in and say, I searched this diagnosis on AI, this is what it told me. And then the GP's like, well, actually, there might be certain errors with that. Have you had experiences recently of clients coming in and being like, well, I asked my legal problem to AI and it gave me this answer.
Yes,
what do you think?
It happens all the time. And you can't, I think, like I said, you can use AI, but you have to use it with caution.
Absolutely.
So I don't see a problem with lawyers or solicitors using AI as long as it's being vetted and it's being amended so that it fits the clients, what they're looking for. You can't just type in something on AI and expect it to give you a solution to the problem. It's not legally trained. It doesn't have qualifications. It's just trying to pull everything that it can find online. So you do have to vet it and make sure that the information that you're using is correct. But it's also a great tool for helping you to draft, to review documents, as long as you're following the correct policies and procedures, making sure that your client information is staying confidential. It can be a good tool.
Definitely. And I think, with clients and clients coming in as well, it's so much of like having that conversation of, yes, it can provide you, basics and that sort of thing. But like a medical diagnosis, there is obviously a certain level of judgment and human skill that's still involved. We're not sure how that's going to change in the next couple of years. But for now, there's a level of, human ability that's needed for sure. And going forward, I guess in a career where, in this sort of legal career where you are doing a range of you're providing a range of different services, you have a range of different clients, where do you see your own career going? And do you feel like you will eventually want to specialize in something, or do you prefer the method of continuing to provide a range of different types of services?
I think I like having the ability to jump into different areas of law. It just makes it more interesting. I think it can become very repetitive if you're just doing one area of law. And it also allows you to give like a one-stop service to your client. So having understanding of other areas of law can help you give better advice as well, because you can think of the problems that they come to you with a different hat. So overall, I think it helps you give a better service to your client.
For sure. And just as a final thing, just before we move into the rapid fire, the other, I guess, big thing that people have when thinking about the kind of firm that they want to work in as well is also their work-life balance and prioritizing different interests. We spoke a little bit about your hobbies at the start of the podcast. How do you feel like your work-life balance is when you're at work? And do you feel like that's changed since you've been a trainee now to an associate?
I think there's definitely a difference between different firms. In my experience at ELS Legal, we have a good work-life balance. I think everyone's very respectful of your personal life, and everyone understands that, we've got families, we've got children, and we've got other commitments. But at the same time, when it comes to doing legal work, we're very much 100% there. And if we need to stay back and help with things, then we'll do that. If we need to do a networking event on the weekend, that's absolutely fine. So there is a good balance. And I think everyone enjoys working here. So it doesn't feel like a chore when you're coming in and getting your teeth into a new case or getting involved in a marketing event or anything like that.
I love that. And I could see that today when we were setting up. I felt like everyone was so involved and so excited to be here. And that's really nice because, well, it's a cliche of, it's like not to say it's like family, but I think when it's smaller, it feels like people are more connected with each other and therefore also understand that you have priorities outside of work, but equally when work needs to become a priority, that's also a balance that you have to strike as well, for sure. And just as a final thing, we always end with a quick rapid fire, so I've just got a final 3 questions for you. So the first question is, what does an ideal weekend in your life look like?
So I just came off maternity leave. I've got a 10-month-old daughter.
Congratulations.
So I spent most of my weekends just catching up with her, because obviously it's very hard to be a mom and also balance work and personal life and everything. So very much just occupied by her at the moment.
I love that. And what's your favorite thing to do with her at the moment?
I like reading with her and playing with her, maybe taking her to the park, just spending time with her.
I love that. The next one is, if you could relive one day of your life, which one would it be?
I think that's quite hard, but any day from my childhood would be great. No responsibility.
Oh, yes.
Just hang out with your friends, watch a bit of TV. Any day.
I love that. Like, we can all just time travel and like go back there for a quick sec. Yeah, for sure. And the final one is, what are the top 3 travel destinations on your bucket list?
So Japan for sure. I've tried to make multiple plans to go Dubai and I still haven't seen it. Something always comes up and I just can't go. So I'd really love to see Dubai. Australia. I know everyone is scared of spiders and snakes, but
Yeah.
I don't mind spiders. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I'd love to visit Australia.
Oh, I love that. That sounds like a great list, and I hope that you can eventually tick them all off. If not this year, then as soon as possible. But on that note, Avni, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us this office space and having the ability to talk to you in person. I think it's always nice to be able to, to speak to someone in person and learn a bit more about their journey. And I think that knowing about your journey and all the obstacles you faced to get here, and now to be working in such a, I think what looks like a model which a lot of law firms are going to be adopting in the next couple of years. I can definitely see it with AI and the way that work is changing. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And on that note, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and a massive, massive shout out to Avni and the entire team at ELS Legal for helping us with this setup, and also to Avni for coming on the podcast as well. So, as I always like to do, those of you who are listening till the end, I like to do a bit of BTS, behind the scenes of recording this podcast. So, when I first reached out to Avni, I actually found out a bit about her story on the Law Society page, and I just found it really fascinating, not just her journey into the law, but also everything that the firm is doing and why she chose to train at ELS Legal as well. And those of you who've listened through to the episode now will know why, and why the model is slightly different to a lot of traditional city law firms. But when I reached out to Avni and we were kind of discussing the episode, she suggested doing it in person in the office. And for those of you who are podcast fanatics or listen to a lot of podcasts like myself, I think there is just something about being in a room with someone and having that energy and kind of feeding off that energy when talking to each other that sometimes can't necessarily be replicated online. And, having this ability to do it on Zoom or on all the different various platforms is amazing. And frankly, it's so rewarding as well. But I think sometimes it is important to recognize that there is something that changes about the energy of a room when you are in the room together and recording the podcast. So when she messaged and suggested the idea, I was so excited. I was more than happy to be able to have that opportunity. And the whole team was so lovely. Everything from, traditionally, those of you who have watched this episode, have listened to it, or have watched the podcast for a long time, know that it's not particularly, professionally edited or professionally filmed or anything like that. But we had lights and, we had cameras and we had a bit more of a professional setup because we had the incredible team at ELS Legal helping us. And I think it really did make a difference to be able to do it in that sort of environment, and to be able to with someone that you've just met, right? If you've heard of them online and you're meeting them for the first time, it sometimes can take a while to be able to get comfortable with each other, and therefore to be on a podcast and discuss about, your journey and your personal journey into the profession. So it was really kind of eye-opening in a way, even though I knew that, on some level before. But I think being able to sort of realize that ability to do it in person and being able to record was just really fun and a really enjoyable experience, and just reminded me of how grateful and lucky I am to be able to have this platform and have this ability to be able to talk to people and have such opportunities. So every time I do an episode, I always feel grateful because of the people who give up their time and their energy and are willing to share their story on this platform. But when it goes a step further and you're able to meet them in person and you're able to ask them questions based on how they're reacting and responding, not just from the way they're speaking, but their body language, it really is something else. And the podcaster in me always really enjoys that. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that at the end. Just to perhaps shed some light on how these episodes are recorded and what difference it makes when it is recorded in person. But if you did enjoy this episode and also want more episodes in person, which hopefully is something that's coming down the pipeline, please do let me know by emailing commercemeetslaw@gmail.com or with the DM on Instagram at commercemeetslaw. And you can also reach out to us on our website, which will be linked down in the description. Finally, for extra similar content, do check out the Commerce Meets Law YouTube channel and our TikTok. For now, take care, goodbye, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.